I'm Tony Norman, retired farmer from the Lean at Pembridge. I've been a tree warden for the parish for nearly 40 years. And one day somebody rang me up to say that the Verdun Oak had been damaged in the storm. So I got straight up there to have a look at the tree. The tree was all over the floor, and the stump was left in the middle. I looked at it that night. For some reason, I thought of this poem that I'd read years ago. It was a poem by Tariq Sayed, who had himself fought in the First World War. It says, "I knew a simple soldier boy who grinned at life in empty joy, slept soundly through the lonesome dark and whistled early at the lark." Well, I was thinking, there must have been boys like that went from this village off to war. From that initial thought, the project crystallized really, and we eventually finished up with talking to Ed Elliott.
So I'm Ed Elliott, artist and sculptor based near Ledbury in Herefordshire. The original idea for the piece came from Tony's sort of conception of it and a poem that inspired him, and he had that conversation with me and gave me the poem. And then actually it was taking those thoughts and trying to come up with a bit of a story for what the tree represents. So it was like an initial assessment of what the tree was. It split in a storm down the original trunk, so it was still rooted on the side of the road but unsafe, so they'd removed the branches. The trunk seemed okay to use for a piece of sculpture, so we started the plans from that point.
Ed was very clever to take on the elements of the tree trunk that was left, that had been split in half. It had 3 branches, and he took on board the elements of the poem that I read.
So it started for me looking at what the tree has. So with the 3 primary branches, I was looking at 3 primary figures to be represented for the story. So originally having the story of the poem with like a countryman from the village or from a rural place, that works really well. But I wanted to represent like the split of the tree being kind of like before and after war or conflict. So you have like a countryman looking down at the land where he's from, like holding a fork that turns to roots and goes into where the tree grew, so like a bit of spirit of place. Arm in arm with his beloved wife or possibly sister or mother, representing that bond of community really. And then the soldier, separated from the couple with the split, is solitary looking out at the village with the very iconic Brodie Tommy helmet. Started with an assessment of the bark, so I removed all the bark and then using chainsaws to remove the majority of the sapwood. And then that revealed like the blank canvas of the heartwood that I had for the piece. And then really starting with chainsaws and like aggressive power tools to rough out the sort of basic design, like the basic form, and then refine the details from there with lots of different power tools and hand tools and lots of different sort of specialist wood carving equipment that I have collected over the years. Working closely with Nathan was amazing. So he's got very different skills to me. So he's very, very good at problem solving and designing the plinth on the computer first of all looked fantastic, and then we could tweak that and get the planning permission and things sorted. But his way of solving problems throughout the project was invaluable.
The tree being there is the only thing I've ever known. I sat underneath it myself. My cousin used to live opposite the oak tree, and she sat there talking to me and other people. So it's actually quite missed, really. So I'm glad this has gone back in its place to remember the tree. Originally we came up with some 3D drawings of what it would look like. There's a few different options, one out of wood, one out of stone, and I think the committee and myself and Tony and Ed both set on the one we've got now, which is just a stone plinth on a pedestal. They originally wanted to get contractors from outside the village to come in and build the plinth and put the statue up, to which I was there sort of trying to push that people from the village would do it, because we've got Martin Bufton, he's the stonemason. He lives 2 miles away in Marston. There's George the blacksmith, who's done all the work in the metalwork. There's Jake's Van Hall, who lives in Shobden, which is 2 miles away. And obviously myself. We all came together to make it a truly communal project.
There was a huge responsibility with this project to take something that was a bit of a landmark for the village already, had quite a significant story. It was a bit of a symbol of hope, I think, for many people already, being a tree coming back from the Battle of Verdun, being planted in the village and sadly being lost, but using this project to create a new story. It's a big responsibility for me to tell that story right.
It'll be a landmark in Herefordshire, it'll be a landmark on the black and white trail. It shows again that Pembridge is innovative and it's proactive and it's caring. Thank you all very much. It gives me great pleasure to unveil the Verdun Oak sculpture. I think the sculpture is a really remarkable combination of things. It can only be a memory of those who fought in the war, particularly those from Pembridge who perished in the war, but I think it goes a stage beyond that. I think by the virtue of the fact it was a tree from Verdun, which was then came to the end of its life, and it's sort of been recreated. It shows the resilience of this community and the caringness of this community.
I hope it will bring people to Pembridge and they will spend their money in the shops and businesses and everyone will benefit. And I think it's going to be a landmark for Pembridge and a landmark for the whole of the county.
Well, it's the future of what's going to be left of the Verdun Oak tree, made into a statue where people can come and see how it originated.
I think it will always be a thought-provoking piece of art. You can see little different things in it. Everyone will have their own different interpretation, but the poignancy of the young girl, whether she's a wife or a mother, with the letter, she clearly received some bad news. That is always going to have a message for people. I think it's going to be a very big thing for the black and white trail. People love coming to Herefordshire, and this is going to be one of the big attractions.
Time and energy has been given to create a piece of artwork that will be part of the village for many more years, and I hope you can all enjoy calling it your own. I want to close by saying a huge thank you to Tony for planting the seed of this idea. Have another round of applause for Tony, please.
I think the community that have all got behind this project are so to be thanked and applauded for their tolerance and patience, and it's a great group of people that really worked hard to try and get the money together to do all this. I think it's going to be great for Herefordshire, to be honest. Pembridge had better watch out, there's going to be a lot of tourists coming to have a look at that.
It's in a prominent place where the original tree was as well, so there's the significance of that. People driving past, walking past, will see the tree. Hopefully they will understand the significance of it.
This is a very strong community. I've been very proud to represent this community for several decades, and I'm very proud of what they can achieve. And I think this again shows what can be achieved with good ideas and working together as a team. And it's something that can help us again celebrate our heritage and our tourism industry, which is so important to our overall economy and many other businesses in the county. And I think it's going to be something that the community is going to be very proud of. And I think we can show it off with real enthusiasm to the rest of the county and the rest of the country as well.
It's beautiful. It was absolutely stunning piece of work. Actually, I think it was the buttons that did it. The buttons on the sculpture are a triumph of a touch, I think. Well, it just made it all so much more real.
The organising committee spoke to me and they decided that they wanted buttons from the regiments of all the men that were named on the war memorial. They managed to get buttons from every regiment that was named on there, and First World War buttons as well, which in some cases now are quite rare.
But there was one button from the Herefordshire Regiment, so I took a mould of that button and cast it into bronze, so there's two, and then the primary pockets on the uniform has the Herefordshire Regiment to symbolise the county that the piece is in and from. Finishing the piece and installing it, the plan is, because it's heartwood oak, is to leave that to weather and silver over time, so it will really look its best after that time. So the first 2 to 3 years it might not look its best as the wood and the oak is starting to silver and weather in the elements, but as soon as it's taken hold and it's got a bit of surface depth and history to it, it's going to look better and better as the years go on.
A few years before, there had been a huge fall of acorns from that tree, and I found somewhere where these trees could go in an avenue, and we planted one tree for each man on the war memorial. Well, they can easily last another 100 years. Maybe somebody will take some acorns off them one day. I knew a simple soldier boy who grinned at life in empty joy, slept soundly through the lonesome dark, and whistled early at the lark.